Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast, one of my MIDI episodes. I'm David Chambers, your host. I'm a men's dating, relationship and intimacy coach. I'm also a couples coach with my partner, Orsa. And in today's mini episode, I'm going to be talking about a topic that I weave into my work a lot, but I don't think I've had an episode just about it. But this is something that comes up a lot in my coaching and in the group program I'm running now. What is about vulnerability and what vulnerability is and what vulnerability isn't, and the sort of vulnerability that as men we need to cultivate. Because if you've listened to the episode I did with Mark Green about manbox culture, which is a very good episode, I'm hearing some really wonderful reviews about that. So if it's something you want to know more about, go there. But the fact that as men, we're kind of schooled into not talking about how we feel from a young age. It can even be seen, I think there's studies that actually show how we talk to boys and girls differently in terms of the emotional language that we use. And then we kind of, not we as a culture around boys, we stunt boys from connecting with emotion and connection, and connection is also part of it. We stunt them in terms of connection because it becomes not so cool to be connected, and there's more bullying, and you get a lot more from the manbox culture episode about that. But in general, as men, we're not always open with our emotions. We choose to be quiet and keep them to ourselves and suppress them and so forth, which leads to a lot of problems, especially around connection, because emotions are the flowing river that create connection. Whether that's between friends, whether that's family, whether it's romantic, whether it's sexual, or whether it is simply at work, how we create connection is through emotion and feeling. So what's vulnerability to me? Let me see what it is today. I guess it's like sharing yourself, sharing who you are with another person. That can be, who you are. Part of who you are is your emotional tone, your emotional feeling. But also part of who you are is, what you do, what you think, and so forth, and who you're being as well. So often we think of vulnerability as sharing negative things, right? We often think of vulnerability as sharing sadness or upset or anger or things we did wrong or things we did badly or things we're ashamed of. And that is part of it. But there's also part of vulnerability is sharing the other end of things, right? The things we're great at, the things when we're feeling really happy, when we're feeling really joyful, when we have done something we're really proud of. That's also a part of vulnerability. And I see with men often that both sides of that vulnerability they don't want to share, including the things they're joyful and happy about. I see men often, and these are men I work with often, like, I don't want to be seen to be bragging, or I don't want to be boasting or, blowing my own trumpet. But actually, again, it's important to still do those things and share, right? Again, because that connects us. And it's one of the reasons why I enjoy running group programs for men, because actually it gives a space where men can come together and share vulnerably with each other, which is a really important part of vulnerability, is sharing with other men and your friends, whether that is the good and the bad, right? And we'll focus on maybe some of the negative emotions for a little bit in terms of like maybe sadness or anger or troubles we're having in our lives. We often don't share those because we're ashamed that people think we're bad or we're stupid or we should be doing better. Well, in fact, sharing those things with people allows us to be felt by other people, allows them to know us better, right? So often we talk about vulnerability in terms of romantic relationships, right? Especially between men and women, and how men need to be more vulnerable. And I'm a proponent of this because I think it's an important part of vulnerability in terms of feeling. If you're with a woman, you're with a feminine woman especially, she wants to feel you as a man. She wants to feel who you are. Now, when you're not vulnerable and you don't share who you are and you don't share your thoughts and your feelings, you leave a big void that she has no idea what's going on with you. She doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know what you're feeling. And this leaves her not sure about you. She can feel unsafe. She can feel disconnected. She could be feeling like, I don't know who you are. I feel distant from you. All those sorts of things. If you're having that in your relationship, it may be because you're not really sharing your thoughts and your feelings with your partner. And I know this could be because you're not sharing because, I've got this trouble at work and there's no point telling her. It won't do any good. right? Or, I am worried about money and I don't want to worry her as well. Now, these are a lot of the things that we do as men to hide our vulnerability. We put excuses around it, like we're trying to do something with the other person, when in fact often we're just uncomfortable with sharing that about because of the meaning we might give it. Like if you share with your partner that you're worried about money, your fear really is what is she going to think about you? And this is part of relating. I mean, relationship is sharing these things with your partner, not from a point of view of necessarily them always providing you with a solution, right? But just simply so your partner can feel you and understand you. And just in sharing, sometimes you might find a solution automatically appears without them saying anything. Or you might find through sharing that you realize it's not as a big deal as you made it out to be, right? Now, I think it's important for us to share our feelings and emotions with our partners. It's something I do very regularly in my relationship. But one of the things I also have in my relationship, and this is a really important part about vulnerability, is my girlfriend's job is not to process my feelings. And what does that mean? When I come to her and I say, I'm feeling really sad, she might say to me, why are you feeling sad? Now, if I was using my partner as a place to process my emotion, I might say, and this is, there's nothing wrong with sometimes doing this, right? Or when you're going for a hard time doing this. But it's when you do this all the time, it becomes a problem. I go to my partner and I say, hi, I'm sad. And she goes, why are you sad? I'm like, I don't really know. And then in that moment, I'm looking to her to process things around my sadness. So then I have a clearer picture and understanding of why I'm sad. So she might ask me a few questions like, okay, like what have you been doing today? Is it work? Is it this other thing? And we get into this big, long conversation that can last half an hour or so, where your partner becomes your therapist, because this is something therapists do for you. If you've ever been to therapy, and I have for the last few years, they help you make sense and work things out. Now, I'm not saying you should never do this in a relationship, because I absolutely don't believe that's the case, because I think it's also an important part of relationship. But it's when your primary place of emotion, of processing your emotion, is going to your partner for them to make sense of it. This creates a really unhealthy dynamic in your relationship. You're kind of basically implanting your partner, your female partner, into being your mother, because that's what your mother would have done for you when you were a small child, right? So learning to process your own emotion is also important part of vulnerability, and that can be through journaling. That can be sharing with other friends in your life, maybe other men, maybe you have elders like a father or an uncle. It might be having a coach. It might be having a therapist. Like all these places can help you process this emotion, right? And the more you use these different places, right, to process your emotion, the less you'll need those other places to process your emotion, because you'll learn to be able to do this better yourself just by the process of doing it with other people. And I say this because this is something that I've learned to do by being with maybe good friends. I've got good male friends who can listen and hear and reflect back. Not necessarily providing solutions, but just being there to listen and hear and kind of help make sense of things that are going on. And this is where it becomes really well in relationships. So this is the point that I'm in with my partner. I might come and say to also, like I'm feeling sad. And she might say, why? And I say, yeah, like I'm feeling sad about work. I'm feeling like things aren't really moving forward. I'm in a similar position to I was before, blah, 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 blah. And in that moment, she might go, okay, is that true? And I might say, it's okay. Like I've been speaking to one of my other friends about this. And actually, what I'm seeing is that I'm being a bit harsh on myself. And, I might be being overly critical. That's something I can sometimes do. But, it's okay. I can move through this. It will pass in a few days. Or I'm actively doing X, Y, and Z to move through this. So you see the difference there. I'm not bringing my problem to my partner for her to sort it out for me. I'm not going to my mummy for her to fix my problems. I'm going to my partner as an equal and saying, this is what's going on for me. This is what I'm feeling, right? And I think this is a really important part of vulnerability that men don't always enter into when it comes to emotional vulnerability, especially. And again, I'm going to reiterate, there will be times that you will want to go to your partner for them to help you process some emotion, because it might be something that's happened between the two of you. It might be something that's happened in your relationship, but there's ways of doing that well, right? And again, and this is a really important part of vulnerability. I can, sharing what you feel in any given moment. And that could just be like, today I'm feeling, quite jubilant, or I'm feeling really excited because I have met some friends last night and we had a really good laugh. You can, that sort of sharing is different from going, hey, yeah, I'm good, I'm fine. When you say you're good and fine, there's not much information there for a friend or a partner to connect with, because ultimately vulnerability helps us connect with other people. And one of the other parts of vulnerability is important is that vulnerability creates safety, because if we're together in a relationship or a friendship or, two work colleagues, if I don't know about you and I feel that you're feeling things or you're thinking things, but you're never sharing, I don't know you. I might not feel very safe around you because I'm not sure what's going on. Like maybe, you're having, I don't know, actually, anything else just lets the person's mind run wild. So vulnerability is also just sharing with the people around you, like, yeah, I'm feeling really happy today. I'm really feeling because this thing's happened to me, or I'm feeling just very content today. Feeling very neutral, actually, just feeling very calm and in a space, or whatever it may be, sharing with the people in your life. And another part of being vulnerable is also being responsible for what you feel. This is something that, can be a real journey in relationships. It's like, you can feel something, but you don't need your partner to really do anything about it. We just acknowledge that feelings come and go, and just sharing those, and that is an ongoing journey in a relationship. Maybe you wake up in the morning and you're feeling insecure, or you're feeling, surprised, or, wherever it may be. And it's just saying, yeah, this is what I'm feeling today. And I'm responsible for that. Actually, I'm feeling a bit insecure today, so I'm going to go for a run or whatever. Is not going to your partner, I'm feeling sad because that thing you did last night, so I need you to do something to change how I feel. Being responsible. And again, there'll be moments where you need them to be responsible how you're feeling. But it's when we always put that onto our partners, we end up in a very difficult relationship where we feel like we know with our mother instead of with a partner who we love and we are passionate about. One of the other things is around vulnerability is in action. Vulnerability, we're vulnerable in action when, for instance, having sex can be a really vulnerable action, especially if we are anxious about any part of sex, whether that's, performance parts of it or being seen or whatever it may be. There's a vulnerability in taking action towards having sex when there's still fear there. There's a vulnerability in, going and speaking to a woman in a bar, even if you have fear. There's a vulnerability in following your purpose or the vocation you want to go into, even when you're scared. That's also another part of vulnerability in terms of action, which I think is really important for us men, especially. Something we miss a lot, I see in guys, is that we get stopped by our procrastination or our thoughts of fear or assumptions that we're going to get things wrong. And actually facing those fears and assumptions is part of being vulnerable, because you're willing to put yourself in the face of perceived danger or perceived fear to move your life forward. And it's a really, really important thing to cultivate, doing things that are difficult, doing things that maybe scare you as well in your life. There's a vulnerability in that. And one of the last things I'm going to say about vulnerability, whether this is in a relationship or in friendships or family and so forth, is we can't get into the habit of being vulnerable and sharing our feelings with the end result and goal in mind of getting something from someone else or getting them to be vulnerable in return. You give your vulnerability as for yourself, right? And as a gift to someone else, not as a transactional thing to get something in return. And this is something we can slip into inside of relationships or friendships. It's like, I'm going to be vulnerable, so now you should be vulnerable. And if you're not vulnerable, I'm going to get mad at you because I've shared myself and you're not being vulnerable. This is something that we really doesn't help us in the long run. I share my thoughts and my feelings and my ideas through my podcast and through my work on Instagram. And I really don't ask for anything in return from anybody. I really, there's a vulnerability in, doing a podcast like this and talking about my life and my thoughts, but I'm not looking for anything in return. Yeah, I have a business, a coaching business, and I run events. And if people so resonate with my message, they can come towards me. But I'm not sitting here getting angry when I don't hear from people, when people don't tell me about how they felt about episodes. I'm not getting angry or upset or needing people to validate what I'm saying as right and wrong. I'm just saying it because that's what's there for me. And this is the sort of vulnerability you want to be cultivating, is to be sharing without the need to get in return from people. Because this allows you to be responsible for what you're feeling, because you're not reaching for anything for anyone. You're not energetically reaching when you're being vulnerable. You're not being vulnerable to get something in return. You're vulnerable just because it's what you want to share and it's part of who you are. Now, I could go on about this topic for ages, but I'm going to keep this reasonably short, this episode. And it's, like I said, vulnerability is a really important part as for all of us, men, women, but I talk from the point of view of looking at men, because that's what I work with. And learning, many of the things I've talked about here, processing your emotions and learning to be with what you're feeling, just be okay that you're feeling sad or you're feeling glum or whatever it may be, and remove the judgment from that is a really important part as well. But also, as I said, to have people in your life who you can talk to. Many of my clients come to me because they can talk to me about how they're feeling, because I'm not judging them, I'm listening, and we work together to potentially find a solution. We work together simply to look at why. So they can come to me and talk to me about certain things, or come to a group of men, like the group of men that I'm running currently, or other men in their lives, so that they're not always going to their partners or their female friends about these things. And they learn to also trust men and create connection through being open, being vulnerable. So, if you've heard this episode and you're thinking, God, I'm not really speaking to my partner because I'm scared she's going to judge me or will ruin our relationship, find some men, find some people, some friends that you can talk to. Get a therapist, get a coach like myself. Go and seek the help that you need, because I've worked with plenty of men who have come to me who are in relationship and they don't talk openly with their partners. And one of the things I love to guide men in is actually being more open with their partners from a place of power, but also finding men in their lives that they can, really connect with and allow them to be more mature with their emotions and become more emotionally intelligent and create deeper connections inside their relationship. So if those are things that, you'd love to cultivate, please get in touch. You can get me on Instagram at @theauthenticman_, or you can find me by email, hello@theauthenticman.net. I'm also going to be running a relationship program, 8-week program with my partner also. That's going to happen during September and October. Only once a week. If you're interested in that, then there's going to be some details in the show notes. You can check that out, or you can find me on Instagram to ask me about that. And we're also going to have a free event called The Foundations of a Conscious Relationship. This is one we've run before, and we'll be running again on the 19th of July. That's a free event. Again, the link to that's going to be in the show notes as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope it's bring you some understanding and deeper knowledge of vulnerability and what it means, and why it's so useful, why it connects us, why it helps create stronger relationships, and also creates stronger people who are more resilient to what they're feeling, more in touch with what they're feeling and what's happening for them, so they can move forward instead of being confused by their emotions and scared even. So so many great things in there. But until next episode and next week, I'll say ciao.